So, one of the things I want to talk about now is actionable solutions which I think can be applied um, to making spaces safer for women. I distinctly remember the weekend in which My Body Is Not Your Crime Scene, the protest and the marches against it, sitting in Tata, watching these young men by a spa, sitting there drinking, which is another problem all entirely together. And this woman got out of her car, and all of them started whistling and catcalling her. And in my mind, I sat there thinking, do these guys really care? Honestly, really care about My Body Is Not Your Crime Scene? And I often thought to myself, and I've often thought to myself, if a lot of men really care. I don't know. But I think what we can do is have simple, actionable solutions that can make spaces safer. And one of them is something that's done in the United Kingdom, in clubs and pubs and bars, and it's called the Ask Angela campaign. And simply how it works is this: any woman, actually any man or woman who is feeling unsafe or is being harassed can go to the bar staff and say to one of them, she's asking for Angela. Because let's be honest, this disproportionately affects women. And the bar staff will respond either by taking her back away from the threat, or calling in the door staff to deal with it, or the person behind, if they're the bartender, will go speak to this guy and say, listen, you need to control yourself or you'll get kicked out. And I think we need in this country to be able to do that, because far too often I've heard the stories from my female friends in which men will brush up against them in the club, or just grab them, or just do crazy stuff. And I think one of the ways we can make it safer is incentivize establishments of that nature to train their bar staff along the lines of an Ask for Angela campaign, so that bar staff are awake to that reality. I mean, another thing is that we could train people to be aware. So if you see somebody in distress, and that also could apply to LGBT spaces where a man is in distress or a woman is in distress, and somebody is just doing something to really make someone uncomfortable or harass someone, or just do stuff that's out of order and just acting like pigs, where you are able to go to the bar staff and say, listen, I've seen this. You do the Ask for Angela thing. You say, listen, I've seen this. It's not cool. Can you keep an eye on it? I saw it there. And so bar staff, if somebody is behaving in a way, they can call in the bar staff, and that person can be kicked out. And I think one of the ways that can happen is that one of the premises of establishments, especially clubs, is that when there aren't women in those clubs, ultimately they tend to fail. And this is the heterosexual spaces, obviously. So one of the things you could do is have a campaign in which bars and clubs and places of that nature that do not sign up and do not demonstrably train their staff to that, women can just have stayaways. I think that could be a good thing for using market pressures to get establishments to make their spaces safer and more comfortable for everyone, but especially women. I think it's a simple solution. I think You just need to work out some of the kinks as to how you keep institutions accountable. But that would require buy-in from people, but especially women, to say, look, if these spaces are going to be unsafe, if there's going to be spiking of drinks, these institutions will simply not have people go there. So if they do not commit themselves, then they lose business and they go out of business. I think that's a very good thing to do. I think it's an actionable thing to do. And I think what it can do, if it's mated to the idea of education, is it helps promote a certain kind of culture in a club. And I want to make clear that I know clubs are often places where people just go to hook up, or they pick someone up and they go home with them for the night. I'm not making a moral judgment on that, because I think as long as anything is consensual, it's good. So I'm not making moral judgments. My thing is that if people behave in a manner not consistent with a culture of consent, then those institutions should pay the penalty. And I think a campaign such as Ask for Angela would be very good in this country, because it's just one major space in which women can be safer. People can be more aware if somebody is distressed, because let's be real here, when you go out to a place to dance and drink, you're just trying to have a good time. And if somebody's harassing you and grabbing you and rubbing themselves against you, it's not nice. It makes your night horrible. So I think that's definitely one solution we should look into.